Hi, everyone.
We are
Don't mess with the Mommas, MOMMAS, with our motto. You are the protagonist of your life, not the victim of your destiny. And
I'm Carla.
I'm Arlaana. And here we go today. We're doing our 43rd, we're up to 43 episodes called It's the Heart. Oops, not the head. So to give a little background, intellect is a powerful tool for logic and data, but fails to solve problems that involve human complexity, moral weight, or systemic uncertainty. And I just want to read something before I turn it over to Carla. A neuroscientist named Damasio studied patients with damage to their brain's emotional processing centers. These individuals remained highly intelligent and could logically list the pros and cons of any choice. However, because they couldn't feel the value of one option over another, they were paralyzed by indecision, unable to make even the smallest choices or the simplest choices, like what to have, for lunch, breakfast, dinner. So you need both. So turning it over to Carla, what are some of the positives of intelligence alone and the negatives of just using what my friend of ours used to call our pea brain? Now, none of our brains are pea, but depending on just your brain, closes you off to the vicissitudes of life.
Well, the brain, intelligence, it can problem solve. It can deal with abstract theories. It can do great mathematical equations, things like that. But it doesn't necessarily tell you if what you're working on is right or wrong. So that's where the heart comes in to question, is this the right thing to do? Even if we can do it, should we do it?
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's one thing about that. Another thing is the intellect can do great innovations, unrestrained thinking. So, your science, somebody going to the moon, how much computation and arithmetic went into that? That's all brain. Should we go to the moon? That's another story. What will you find when we get up there? There's somebody going up to the moon right now.
Absolutely, they are, yeah.
Yeah, and I think they're going to name something after one of their wives.
Yeah, and going around the moon to the dark side for the first time. So that's all interesting.
Well, I've been there. I know.
And I love, you were going to read an interesting quote.
This is, I did my little research, and I think this is so interesting to show exactly what the mind can do, okay? So it's Archimedes, and he lived between 287 and 212 BCE. And this is what they call pure abstract genius. And it says, the ancient Greek mathematician and engineer exemplified intelligence as a pure, almost detached force. During the Roman siege of Syracuse, Archimedes applied his intellect to design war machines, said to include giant claws that lifted enemy ships and parabolic mirrors to focus sunlight, that held off a superior Roman army for 2 years. His work in geometry, hydrostatics, and mechanics laid foundations that would not be surpassed for over a millennium. That's how smart he was. Yet his intelligence lacked contextual wisdom when a Roman soldier found him during the city's fall. Archimedes was reportedly absorbed in a mathematical diagram and dismissed the soldier with, "Do not disturb my circles," leading to his immediate death. His genius was unmatched. His situational awareness was zero. He could not read the room.
Yeah, he couldn't read the room. I love it. And you know, so many brilliant thinkers have created, the Nazis were created by these brilliant thinkers, right?
Yeah.
Eugenics, or you know, survival of the fittest, were created by brilliant thinkers, but they completely lacked empathy. Vietnam War, right? The Bay of Pigs invasion, where a groupthink was established, you know, or they used groupthink. So, you know, just using your mind can lead to so much arrogance, as if you had all the answers. And I have to say something about today's, you know, social media, right? Or when I talk into the phone using Siri, right?
Yeah.
And I say you, it always converts to he. Now, I don't know what that's about, but I think it's an interesting thing to realize. But beyond that, I think so many of these geniuses, these tech geniuses, they develop these really supreme, sophisticated algorithms. But have they really considered, as you said, reading the room? There's something, so that's why I think social media leads to isolation. If I can just read this quickly. Intelligence can build social media algorithms to maximize engagement, but it cannot solve the resulting loneliness or lack of human connection without anything having to do with empathy. So they've thought of all these great things, but have they really thought it through, how it's going to impact the human being? We're all human beings. Without the human element, what's left? What's left? But, you know, the other concept, if I may, our international president, Daisaku Ikeda, talked about abstract realism. So easy to kill people if you have no sense of the reality of that individual. They just become an abstract theory to you, a way to gain power, you know, over them, not looking at them as a human being just like yourself who struggles with the same, you know, issues over and over again. So what else would you like to share about intelligence? And then we can talk about the treasures of the heart.
Okay, when I did my little bit of research, you know, Archimedes, Oppenheimer, Einstein, you know, all these great thinkers, you know, they were alone in the room. So there wasn't any, if they had had one mama, she would have been able to say, listen, you know, I don't think we should really split that atom this way. And if we do, we shouldn't use it for this, you know. So if there had been, you know, and the women come with the heart. They come with the heart. If there had been just one woman, it would have been different. And I think that's what we're lacking in the world today.
Right. The real treasures of the heart. So that treasures of the heart has to do with our compassion, our courage, our intuition, and we provide the why and the should, while intelligence provides the how. So intelligence provides the map, but the empathy and the heart provide the compass. Without them, even the most logical decisions, as we know, can lead to disastrous results, you know. So the treasure of the heart, let's talk about that a little bit. What is, you know?
Treasures of the heart are, you know, your relationships with people, you know, your friends, your family, your neighbors, you know, what you can share. You know, if you help someone to overcome a problem and you see them flourish, you know, that's a great treasure of the heart, you know, because you had a part in their growth. You had a part in their being able to go forward and advance, you know, and they always thank you. They always thank you. So you're never left out. So you always love that you were able to help them and encourage them to live their best life, you know?
And I think especially today's youth, they have so little trust because people are trying to tell them how to act, what to be, not to fail. You need to be this perfect individual, and not really looking at them and listening to them and trusting them. So therefore, there's so little trust in the world. Without treasure of the heart, there is no trust. People don't buy in. You know, you could give them the most profound technology or inventions, but there has to be a buy-in. There has to be the human element. There has to be this deep caring, understanding, how it's going to impact the human being and how the human being is going to relate to that. And the most joy in life, I mean, you'll never meet somebody who's completely in the head as really joyful because they're missing out on their life. So of course it's great to be intelligent. I mean, I kept on going to school, and I wasn't going to stop until I had to stop. So that's great to have lots of intelligence. Why not? And to read books and to really, gain so much knowledge. I mean, today, with AI, you can get every bit of information that you want at your fingertips, and that's wonderful. But without the means to apply it to create positive, cause, it becomes dark, it becomes evil, just like a surgeon's knife, I mean, just like a blade. In the hands of a surgeon, it can create great good. In the hands of an evil
person
doer, yes, it can create great evil. So how do we, without adding the treasure of the heart, then our society becomes evil. And we're seeing that. We're seeing that in reality, in real time, right now, in our society, in our country, and in our world.
Right, this may be mixing apples with oranges, but my kids, I call them my kids, wherever I live, they're my kids.
Of course.
Okay, they came to me one day and they explained that these boys came to the neighborhood and they weren't very nice and things they said and they trusted me to tell me the things that went on. And and I know my little Declan, he was figuring out what position is she going to take, because he's like maybe 7, 8, 9 going on, and he's checking it. Is she going to come with a good, advice for this situation? And I think when I told him, well, don't worry, those little boys, they can change. They can change. You show them by your example what a good human being is. You show them, and they can change. And I think they were satisfied with that answer.
And if you just used your intelligence, without your heart, you might say, well, you better beat them up, or something that lacks any kind of empathy or understanding of what they're going through,
Yeah.
And, to be able to see the person's point of view is so important, and there's just not enough dialogue. People are creating these great things using their minds, but are they really dialoguing, opening up their heart, and not trying to impose their, their beliefs and view onto somebody else, but really listen? Through what you was talking about, the Mommas, right? You have to have this, you have to hear things from everybody's point of view. That's how you can make the best decision. But if you're just making decisions in a vacuum with all of your bros or whomever, like-minded people, without really getting the full view of humanity, then you're going to create something that's going to create more harm than good. And that's what we're seeing today. The treasure of the heart is so lacking in society today.
And the other thing was that that I learned is that that we have a tendency to dismiss people's emotions, or based on saying, oh, it's illogical. No, it's not illogical. That head and heart are there for a reason, to work together.
And I think people have so much fear to open up. They're using their intelligence, their minds, because that's what they're comfortable with, especially students today. But to be able to be vulnerable and open up their hearts and say who they are and what they're about. And as you saw, those of you who saw, we did a really wonderful interview with my friend, actually, Karen Richardson Dunn, on well-being. She's a well-being counselor. And what she's seeing, in the youth today, these really intelligent, privileged young people are really suffering deeply, and older people as well, with loneliness, with a lack of identity, with fear and just, body dysmorphia, not able to be themselves. People have so much that they're just, they're so much outer directed instead of inner directed, so we really need to change that big time.
Who should I be? Who should I act like,
Right.
Without being able to be yourself.
Right, and not to be judged. We got to get rid of all that judgment. So, in a way, using your brain only and your brawn, it's very safe. You don't have to expose yourself. You don't have to be vulnerable. You don't have to feel and experience maybe rejection. But through rejection, that's how you develop yourself. That's how you polish your life. But if you don't have a strong foundation, a strong sense of self, then you're devastated. Or if you're a brilliant mathematician, you were using the word math, using the concept of math, an example, if math will show you the right and the wrong, but the in-between, if you can't live that in-between, that gray area, then you could be devastated. So somebody who's spent their whole life working hard to solve a deep mathematical, scientific problem, and then finds out after all these years that it doesn't work, they could be so devastated, they end up, committing suicide or just being so hopeless, instead of really seeing, everything as a process, as a journey, as a way to really develop the self.
That inward being.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
So so once again, intelligence says, can we? But the heart says, should we?
Should we?
Should we?
All right. And if you're just using your head, your logic, it's almost that you're in a car with no steering wheel.
Right.
You have no way to, you're just going straight ahead all over the place.
Absolutely. So I think, I think we've said enough head and heart, and I'll conclude with our encouraging words, as we always do. And I always have to read this. More valuable than treasures in a storehouse. And that's, how much money we have, how much, financial fortune we have.
How many minks?
No, you can't use minks anymore. It's like outlawed. So more valuable than treasures in the storehouse are the treasures of the body, your health. Of course, that's really important, your health. And the treasures of the heart are most valuable of all, which means, guys, you don't have to be incredibly healthy and you don't have to be rich, but you could have more treasures than anybody else because you have the treasures of the heart. You really appreciate life. You really enjoy your life to the fullest, whatever state that is. Treasures of the storehouse refer to money and other forms of material wealth. Treasures of the body are skills and abilities as well as physical health. Treasures of the heart are the riches that we build within our lives. This indicates the kind of inner strength that cannot be defeated by any tribulation. It refers to the power to live out our lives in a creative way with constant joy, fulfillment, and vitality. And just I have to say that I came back from one of our amazing conferences. Our Soka Gakkai International of United States has wonderful conferences at the place called the Florida Nature and Culture Center. And this was called the Many Treasures Conference, which means those of us who are a little bit older in age. And there were so many who were infirmed who were at that conference. They had walkers or wheelchairs. But the joy in their lives, they really had such appreciation for their lives and so much joy, and they were able to encourage so many, other individuals. So it's
youthful spirit.
Youthful spirit. We always say there's no retirement age in faith. So always be forever young, and by the more we interact with young people and listening to young people, because they really are struggling the most and they have the most answers, actually, not up here, but in here, that keeps you forever young. But anyway, getting a little bit off topic.
Okay.
But don't forget, we are
Don't
mess with the Mommas, MOMMAS, with our motto: you are the protagonist of your life, not the victim of your destiny.
That's right.
And you can find us on
Spotify,
YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, anywhere where you listen or see your podcast. And please, we'd love to hear from you. We are Mommas, MOMMAS podcast@gmail.com. Please take precious care of your wonderful selves and regard your unique lives as wonderful. Whatever you look like, whatever state you're at, you are unique. You are your unique self.
and the world loves you.
And the world loves you.
And we need you.
And we need you, yeah. Bye-bye. Bye.